Part 43. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 423. The Unnamed Island. The Keeper's Headquarters, a place full of mysteries. At this time, the veil was gradually lifted to Fang Xian and other newcomer investigators. On the huge fortress square named Secret Fort, he, Eric, and other investigators stood upright, with their hands behind their backs, looking at their instructor. Elite Investigator, Karu. For these new investigators, they are only allowed to move around in a few limited public areas of the secret castle, and there are even some strict requirements, such as having to go to sleep after 9 o'clock every night and so on. In short, the headquarters is a place full of mystery and strict rules. Moreover, after more than half a month of training, they have not seen the real high-level secret keeper, such as the legendary investigator Clark Carter. We keepers of secrets believe that all supernatural forces are uncontrollable and full of risks. Karu's body is thin, but his voice is louder than expected, but, in recent years, supernatural cases have occurred frequently. In order to deal with more and more complicated situations, even the secret keeper must make changes. Your training. This is a daily instruction, and Fang Xian is very bored listening to it below. For him, instead of doing this kind of boring behavior here, it is better to go to a limited open library to read. Although there is no real book of power there, a large number of classics are very good for understanding this world and those organizations that master supernatural power. As for creation, this was temporarily stopped by him. After all, playing tricks in the headquarters of the secret keeper is really a bit of a deadly game. For the same reasons and considerations, he did not rush to channel anything. Although, Fang Xian is very clear that there are many mysteries buried in this secret castle, maybe just touching a piece of tile may lead to a source of power and bring him new inspiration. And, the ancient ruler sleeping on the bottom of the sea is also very interesting. Although I already know the other party's god name. But Fang Xian hypnotized himself instead, deliberately forgetting that pronunciation. Otherwise, it is likely to bring some troubles to myself, not to mention reverse psychic or something. Many legendary investigators in our headquarters, after careful consideration, have chosen several methods that can barely be used by human beings. They are open to new investigators in order to allow you to better protect yourself, protect human beings, and protect yourself. Secrets, in the final analysis, our goal is to keep secrets, not to publicize. If we can't make good use of power, we will definitely be hurt by the sword of power. Karu babbled a lot, and finally got to the point. I have taught you Chatara fighting skills before, and today, I want to introduce you a secret medicine. The students below were immediately refreshed. It is said that the Chatala fighting technique comes from a savage tribe in a primeval forest. That tribe worships barbaric gods, retains cruel and bloody customs, and has many weird sacrificial ceremonies. An investigator once went deep into the jungle and was captured by this primitive tribe, but finally escaped and brought out a piece of martial arts information. It is said that this is a skill that can only be mastered by that tribal warrior. When practicing, one needs to smear the whole body with sacrificial holy oil and swallow some special herbs. The fighters trained in this way are often extremely strong in physical fitness, and can fight crocodiles and cheetahs with bare hands. More importantly, they can hypnotize themselves, be brave and fearless, and seem to have completely lost fear and pain. Chatala, in the native language of that primitive tribe, it means hunting. The keeper of secrets collected this fighting technique and modified it to remove the bloodiest and darkest part, but the rest is strong enough. With some psychological hints and special drugs, Fang Xian feels that it may be able to fight against some abnormal creatures. Both do damage, like the scales. As a generation of martial arts supreme and martial arts master, he has long seen that this Chatala fighting technique has some traces of modification. And some of the moves don't seem to be used to deal with people or ordinary beasts. In short, it might be a set of techniques for hunting supernatural creatures. Obviously, the headquarters still taught some real things this time, and there were dry goods, which made Fang Xian very much looking forward to it. At this time, I heard Karu's loud voice continue, "You are all equipped with the branch's sedative drugs. Yes, they come from the headquarters, and they are just the most inferior imitations. In many cases, they are not so effective, and here at the headquarters, there is a better secret medicine, which can calm your spirit, stabilize your reason, overcome your fear, and stimulate your strength, but the reason why it was not given to you before is that its side effects are very powerful. We currently don't have an effective treatment, even blood therapy, it doesn't work at all." Karu took out a small jade bottle and poured out a round pill from it. This is not the style of Western pills. This was Fang Xian's first feeling when he saw the pill. The pill was translucent, showing a light blue color, and there seemed to be clouds and mist inside, forming a spiral, more similar to the Oriental cultivation pill. It's called Three Swan Secret Pill. It's such an awkward name, because it comes from the land of sunrise in the east. Most of you have heard that there is a book in the land of sunrise, called the Black Emperor Nine Mysteries Canon. The former foreigner religious group brought one of the chapters, and came to us across the ocean, and this secret medicine comes from another chapter of this classic, which introduces various effects. Drugs can fully develop the potential of the human body, gain strength, and increase life. However, most of the users gradually become monsters. Karu showed a serious smile. The three-turn secret pill in my hand is made by imitating a prescription in the chapter, 9 Xian Golden Pill. Although I tried my best to reduce many side effects, it only needs to be taken once. It will cause permanent damage to the body and spirit. This is a banned drug among banned drugs, and it cannot be used until the moment of life and death. And the effect of the three-turn secret pill is to stabilize the mind, maintain sanity, and stimulate the final potential of the body. How good is the effect? In the previous experiment, a seriously injured ordinary person, after swallowing it, immediately he regained the mobility of a normal person, and eliminated the three-headed kinky man in a frontal battle. I don't know what a kinky man is, go back and look at the library by yourself. In the headquarters, there are indeed many good things. Fang Xian's eyes lit up when he heard that. It is said that there are 9 chapters in the Black Emperor's 9 profound teachings. Obviously, the secret keeper has at least obtained the Goo Insect chapter and Refining Medicine chapter. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 424. Inside the big library. Fang Xian closed a copy of Blood Tracking, Walking with Ghouls, and curled his lips. The library of the secret castle is classified. We novice investigators cannot read books with power, at most they are some introductions. It's really boring. In fact, he could see this from Karu's teaching. So far, Karu has taught his students a very cautious and conservative supernatural knowledge. The secret medicines that are a little bit out of the ordinary are all directly provided as finished products, and will not teach the refining method. It seems that the keeper of secrets is more willing to support various branches of a batch of medicines and equipment containing mysterious power that will continue to wear out, rather than real power. This made Fang Xian a little unhappy. How can he better understand the mysteries of existence at the 7th level and correct his way of alchemy without reading those works at the level of true gods? Hi Roka. Eric walks by with a book in hand, reminding, curfew is coming soon. I'll go back now. Fang Xian took a glance and saw that Eric was holding a copy of the Interpretation of Dreams. He couldn't help but asked with a smile, have you finished reading it yet? I don't read as fast as you, Eric scratched his head shyly. I agree with some of the views in this book. The author knows people's subconscious very well, and thinks that everyone's subconscious may be connected. This is also the basis for us to enter other people's dreams. Eric's eyes were hot, and he seemed to be pulling Fang Xian to start a discussion. Okay, if we are later, we will really be caught and reprimanded. Fang Xian dragged the reluctant Eric to return the books, dumbfounded, and returned to their respective dormitories. After closing the bedroom door, 9 consecutive bells rang. According to regulations, all students must fall asleep. Conventional means won't work, maybe you have to try unconventional means. Fang Xian was lying on the bed with his eyes open. Why, the secret castle stipulates that you must go to bed at 9 o'clock. And there is a curfew? Could it be that the secret castle at night? Will something be different? Even very dangerous? He waited for a while, but nothing unusual happened. This is also normal. 9 o'clock is the time given by the top management of the secret castle, and it does not necessarily mean that it is stuck at a dangerous outbreak point. There must be a period of preparation time. Of course, it is also possible that everything is his cranky imagination. However, based on his recent experience, Fang Xian felt that his guess might be correct. And this may be an opportunity to get rid of the restrictions of the secret castle and explore some secrets. He glanced at his attribute bar. Name, Fang Xian, Luo Ka. Occupation, Alchemist, Level 6 Death. Spirit, 180. Inspiration, 215. Sanity, 50, 100. Spells, Immortal Psalm, Bird with Broken Wings, Hymn to Worms, Secret Key of the Door. Alchemy, Taoism, Martial Arts, Weird. Well, since this period of time, the spirit and inspiration have increased again. The spirit has benefited from the investigator's training, as for the inspiration, increased by 10 points in one breath, and there is no way to do it on that small island. Fang Xian still had some lingering fears at this time. Just hearing a god's name will increase his inspiration by 10 points. If he sees the real body of the ancient ruler, he will definitely increase his inspiration by dozens of points. This is actually not bad. If it is an ordinary investigator, there is a high probability that he will go crazy and die. Dang dang. Unknowingly, the bronze bell rang twice again, and the time quietly reached midnight. Coming. Fang Xian's heart shuddered. He felt a supernatural sweep. That's the bell. After 9 o'clock, every time the bell strikes, it has a unique supernatural ripple, which has the effect of calming the soul. Ordinary people will probably fall into a deep sleep when they hear it. Especially in the wave of midnight, the invisible sound directly acts on the soul. Even senior investigators may not be able to resist taking corresponding psychotropic drugs. It's a form of hypnosis, but also a form of protection. Fang Xian had a clear understanding in his heart: when the secret castle is at midnight, if you don't fall asleep and travel at night, will you encounter danger? Now that the mutation has come, I haven't fallen asleep, what will happen? He waited quietly. Soon, it was 12 o'clock at midnight. A layer of blurred and illusory light and shadow suddenly rose from the center of the secret castle and spread to the surroundings at an extremely fast speed. In just a dozen seconds, it enveloped the entire unnamed island. Is this a dream? A dream that materialized and appeared in the real world? Fang Xian's eyes widened, watching the colorful and blurred light envelop his body, the power to distort fantasy and reality. This must not be something a keeper can do. The surroundings returned to their original state, but Fang Xian knew that everything was different. At this time, he was already in a bizarre dream. Different from other students, they are sleeping at this time, dreaming their own dreams, and there is a high probability that they will not be involved in this dream. Even if it is involved, it is only a spiritual descending, and it will wake up after death. As for Fang Xian, his real body has entered the dreamland. Interesting. Fang Xian looked around and found himself in a colorful bubble. The bubble bound his hands and feet, making him unable to move freely. Even a legendary investigator might not be able to struggle with such a restrictive power. But as a 6th-level alchemist, He activated the power of dreams in the hymn of worms, just a little bit. Snapped. The bubble burst immediately. Fang Xian landed on the ground, moved his hands and feet, and pushed open the door of the dormitory. If it was in the real world, he would definitely startle a bunch of people if he walked out so swaggeringly. But at this time, each dormitory was extremely quiet, as if there was no one in it. After walking a few more steps, he saw an iron fence that completely separated the male students' dormitory from the outside world. What age? Fang Xian was a little speechless, and suddenly kicked the iron door open. After all, this is not reality, but a dream. And he also mastered a little power about dreams. Bang! The sound of the iron door hitting the wall echoed in the empty corridor, and he seemed to be the only one in the entire secret castle. It's amazing, this dream, with its protection, I can go unimpeded in the secret castle. Of course, if I meet the owner of the dream, I will most likely be unlucky. Now, let's see how powerful the owner of this dream is. Fang Xian turned around and came to the big library. He walked past the bookshelves of ordinary students and came to the area. Old Seal of Blood, Acero Praise, Book of Deep Sea Sacrifice, Romantos Wool, Black Emperor 9 Mysteries, Eye of the Void. Many famous books, full of evil and chaos just by looking at the cover, are all displayed in front of Fang Xian. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 425. So many beautiful things. Looking at the catalogue of banned books, Fang Xian had the illusion that a mouse fell into a rice jar. He squinted his eyes, and had a guess. This dream can perfectly recreate reality, even these books of power, and its owner is very high, dominated by the ancient times suppressed by the secret keeper headquarters. No. The secret keeper just discovered this place and took the initiative to act as a jailer to guard this great existence, right? Looking at the geographical location, I have a wonderful guess. Here, in fact, it is not far away from the unnamed deserted island where the Heart of Sea Blue entered by mistake, and they are all in the same sea area. And there are scales living, enshrining the elders of the deep sea, and always worshipping a certain great existence. According to rumors, by offering sacrifices to the elders of the deep sea, one can enter its belly, sneak into a certain deep sea secret, and come to the palace of the ancient ruler. In the same area, it is unlikely that two ancient rulers are sleeping. Therefore, Fang Xian boldly guessed that the headquarters of the secret keeper was built above the sleeping place of the ancient ruler worshipped by the scaled people. I don't know how many generations of investigators discovered the secrets here, so the headquarters of the secret keeper moved here to serve as jailers and guards. With the strength of a humble mortal, of course, a great existence cannot be guarded. However, they could at least keep other heretics of the Nicolaya from approaching, and prevent the sleeping being from unconsciously leaking contamination. This is the secret of the keeper's headquarters. What a great horror to sit on the crater and watch over. Fang Xian rubbed his chin. It seems that the supervision is not perfect, and the passage of the elders of the deep sea is not blocked. No. Maybe this is a loophole that appeared because the end is approaching? He prefers the latter guess. At this time, he suddenly thought of something and started to recite the mantra. One after another, black bugs crawled out of the void, turning into a black cloak and covering him. This is both a defense and a layer of camouflage. After finishing the preparations, Fang Xian reached out and took down a copy of Old Seal of Blood from the bookshelf. On the surface of the book, a symbol that is both symmetrical and contradictory, full of distortion and symbolic meaning is depicted, and it seems to be spinning continuously, exuding a bloody smell. This is compiled by a pagan, a study of a seal. Fang Xian nodded, browsed quickly, and pulled out another copy of Secrets of the Wild Hunt. As soon as this book of animal skins was opened, it seemed as if ice and snow were paving the surface, carrying a chill that could freeze the bone marrow of a person. There is no doubt that this is a book compiled by believers who believe in the existence on the throne of the wild hunt. It uses an ancient script from a hunter-gatherer people. Fortunately, Fang Xian has always had the habit of mastering the relevant language. Even so, he struggled to read it. After all, the author wrote very sloppily and seemed to be in a state of madness or insanity. After flipping through it, Fang Xian felt as if a brick was stuck in his mind, which was a bit heavy. Even the operation of thinking has become much slower. If it's an ordinary investigator, he's probably insane, right? He sneered inwardly. Every banned book here is out and out evil, with the power to demagogue people, and can make a normal person become a fanatic without knowing it. This is true for one book. If there are more than one book in a row, there is a high probability that they will become crazy or die suddenly. But for Fang Xian, it also made the burden on his soul slightly heavier, that's all. The classics that tell the knowledge about the true God are rare in other worlds, and this world is very special, so there is such an opportunity. Fang Xian read eagerly, supplementing his knowledge. Da-da. Although his movements were fast, he only read 3 books before he heard footsteps approaching. This is normal. After all, this is the headquarters of the Keeper of Secrets, with a large number of elite investigators, even legendary investigators. It is impossible for them not to have a way to enter the dream, and it is impossible for them not to take precautions against the dream of this great existence. The footsteps became more and more urgent, and a figure emerged from the corner. He was wearing an investigator's black windbreaker, with distinct facial features, wine-red eyes emitting a mysterious light, and thick lips, which were tightly pressed at this time, giving a very serious feeling. Intruder. When he saw Fang Xian, he didn't recognize him. After all, Fang Xian had already put on a black cloak to cover his face, and his aura was evil and terrifying. However, no matter who it is, the act of directly reading the banned book undoubtedly touched the bottom line of the secret keeper. Clark Carter. Fang Xian raised his head, his voice was hoarse, and he recognized the legend. Although he has never met the other party formally, he has already seen this legendary investigator countless times from oil paintings and from love's narrative. Come out, my partner. Clark Carter didn't say much, and launched an attack directly. He stretched out his hand, and suddenly there were several bat-like monsters in the void. This is a nightmare. A creature living in the fantasy land, in one of his adventures, made a contract with him and became his partner. Nightmare can travel freely in dreams, likes to devour sweet dreams, create nightmares, and give intelligent creatures mental pain. But at this moment, these nightmares flapped their wings and dared not take a step forward. They felt the breath of the ancients. The secret keeper's treasury is really rich, it's a pity, although the books here are related to the true God, they still can't solve the doubts in my heart. Fang Xian shook his head, put the Black Emperor's 9 profound teachings back on the bookshelf, and sighed. This is an extremely dangerous character. Feeling the fear of his companions and hearing the words of the man in black, Clark Carter looked extremely solemn. The forbidden library of the secret keeper is already a treasure house that many pagans dream of. The man in black on the opposite side is not satisfied with this place. What kind of evil power is he yearning for? Gritting his teeth, he took out a revolver with a silver secret pattern. This special weapon can be used even in dreams, and has great lethality. It's a bit difficult. At this time, Fang Xian also hesitated. Of course he can use spells, but it is easy to expose something. At this time, suppressing with his personality can even block the follow-up clues and prohibit ordinary divination. But if you take too many shots and leave too much information, it will be difficult to say. GG, are you ready for the baptism of evil? He gave a strange laugh, ready to pounce. While Clark Carter was concentrating on defense, he suddenly rolled into the shadow beside him. Bang bang. Clark Carter, who was surprised to be deceived, shot one after another, but found that Fang Xian was moving too fast, like a ghost. His marksmanship could only hit the bookshelf, causing broken pages to fly all over the sky. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 426. When Clark Carter chased out of the library, he saw that the other party had run to the end of the corridor. The speed and strength of the man in black, all left a deep impression on him. This is the case in dreams, and the real world must be extremely powerful. Who is he? A hidden evil heretic actually possesses such a level of power, which is a major hidden danger to the world's security. Clark Carter recited a few bytes while running. That is not a note that humans can make, or in other words, it is a weird sound made by humans imitating certain creatures. Every word seems to be full of depravity and chaos. Puff. The shadow in the corridor exploded, and tentacles covered with eyeballs extended from it, like a python, sweeping towards Fang Xian. Snapped. A tentacle whipped on the black robe, as if it wanted to restrain Fang Xian's right leg. The next moment, the tentacle exploded, with black spots attached to the tip, as if it had been eaten by countless insects. Back off. Fang Xian suddenly exuded a trace of breath. This is the 6th-level alchemist personality. Under its influence, all the tentacles trembled, as if they had sensed something extremely terrifying. They curled up one after another. Superior existence. Humanoid supernatural creature? Clark Carter, who was chasing from behind, snorted angrily, and watched Fang Xian crash through the window and jumped out. But his anger only lasted for a moment, and then the lines of his face softened, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Snapped. Fang Xian shattered the window and prepared to transfer immediately after landing. He needs to escape from Clark Carter's sight and return to the place where he entered the dream in the first place, so that he can get out of here and return to the correct position in the real world. Suddenly, Fang Xian stopped moving. He looked around. He was stunned to find himself standing in the center of a stage. The lights on the stage were bright, and most of the audience in the audience were wearing yellow robes, with dull expressions, like puppets. He seemed to have jumped onto a stage, in a theater. Rumble. At this moment, the dome of the theater parted, revealing a huge face. Like a god, high above, overlooking all living beings. It was the face of a middle-aged woman. She was silent for a while, stretched out her hands, and the two giant hands shook the universe, as if carrying the power of space. Wherever the big hand passes, the three-dimensional image is instantly transformed into a two-dimensional flat image, compressed and rolled up. This is the power of destroying heaven and earth. This woman is also a legendary investigator? Why is she so strong? No. It should be said why she became so big. Fang Xian rolled her eyes and suddenly realized, it's not that she has grown bigger, but I have become smaller. Is this in a painting? Dream. Clark Carter chased to the window and saw that the legendary investigator of Seinen below had arrived and was slowly putting away an oil painting. This oil painting depicts a huge theater with the bright light of dusk as the background, and there seems to be a small person on the stage. It is called the Theater of the Twilight King, and it is an item full of magical power, which can be directly brought into dreams and exert its effects. And once the oil painting is rolled up, it means that people or things from the outside world will be completely sealed. Did you fall into the trap without knowing it? After all, it is the investigator's headquarters, there are too many forces to use. Fang Xian watched the giant hand restrain everything and sighed. This kind of power, even the ancients, may be sealed. Even the transmission function of the secret key has been affected. This is almost hopeless. Fortunately, he had an insight into a secret before, and he could just use it. I hope, the seal underground is strong enough. Fang Xian took a deep breath, shook his body, and shouted loudly, Nikolaya! Nikolaya! This is the divine name of the ancient ruler who sleeps in the deep-sea secret realm, possessing incredible power. After Fang Xian's previous deduction, he roughly believed that this dream belonged to Nikolaya himself. At this time, what kind of changes will happen if you call the name of the old god in his dream? Rumble. The entire island was trembling, as if an undersea earthquake had erupted. A large area of land was split open, and a layer of sea water surged out. In the secret castle, one building after another collapsed and was submerged by sea water. Do not! Xylena screamed and saw that the half-rolled oil painting in her hand was cracked, and the salty sea water overflowed from it. Although they are both rulers of the ancient times, this is just an oil painting drawn by believers who perceive the power of the Twilight King, while the dream belongs to the ruler Nikolaya himself. Therefore, after Fang Xian recited the name of the god, the conflict between the two immediately caused the oil painting to break, and Fang Xian took the opportunity to escape from it. You know what you did? 11 Lingna pointed at Fang Xian, trembling all over, and roared, You have summoned an existence that must never be awakened, and the end may be brought forward. Fang Xian said nothing. Even though he was surrounded by elite investigators, he didn't speak. At this time, everyone was shocked by the huge black shadow rising from the center of the secret castle. It came from the cracks in the ground and the sea water, just a vague black shadow. The investigators present were all seasoned investigators. Unfortunately, whether it was a strong physique, a self-proclaimed firm spirit, or even a proud reason, they were nothing in the face of real terror. Everyone's heart seemed to be grasped by invisible hands, and unprecedented fear filled the hearts of every investigator. The investigators saw the shadow, but they didn't seem to see it. What they saw seemed to be the ruins of the ancient castle, but there was some inexplicable existence entrenched on the ruins, showing a different shape. Incomprehensible, indescribable. Even if they narrate what they have seen, they will find that their descriptions are almost completely different, producing the effect of a blind man feeling an elephant. The shallow cognition of human beings is ridiculous and crude in the face of such a great existence. Fang Xian's body trembled, and his sixth-level personality was urging him to bow his head. Because the black shadow was almost about to condense in his fantasy and perception, turning into an indescribable specific shape. Do not look directly at God. Nicholas, the ancient ruler. It's just that in the dream, a little shadow woke up, and the fear was like a hurricane, sweeping away all the investigators. It can't be revived. Clark Carter gritted his teeth and chanted the spell aloud. The speed at which the secret castle collapsed was even faster. But from the position of the large library, among the fallen ruins, a book was suspended, turned into a ball of golden light, and exploded suddenly. The invisible wind swept over the surroundings, calming the trembling of the ground, and the rough sea water curled back to the surface. Fang Xian covered his forehead. He seemed to hear a crazy cry in his ears, I, the god climber, Hopkins, will make all the gods in the sky vanish into thin air. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 427. Is that a book? Fang Xian looked into the air. Why didn't I see it in the restricted area? Or, it's not in the restricted area, but sealed in a deeper place. God Climber, Hopkins. This nickname is not something ordinary people can call it. However, in such a world, taking such a nickname makes Fang Xian feel a little ironic. His inspiration spread, and he immediately felt that the fate of this god climber was not very good. However, there is no doubt about the other party's achievements on the road to transcendence. Even the writings left behind carry power, which can offset the influence of a seal leaked by an ancient ruler. Fang Xian might be able to do this in his heyday, but not now. But, a loser trying to become a god. This kind of taboo knowledge is what I want. Even if it is a path of failure, it can bring him more inspiration than the previous classics. Therefore, Fang Xian stretched out his right hand. On the palm of his right palm, silver lines were outlined in the void, forming the shape of the secret key of the door. He took a step forward and disappeared into the void immediately. This imprint can be used even in dreams. Do not. In other words, in the dream world, its effect is even stronger, perhaps because the space of the dream world is easier to be changed. It doesn't even need to be angled to form a gate, and teleportation can be achieved. In mid-air, Fang Xian appeared next to the ray of light and glanced at it. When his inspiration came out, he was immediately affected, and a scene of phantoms emerged. It was a young man with bright eyes, shining like stars. The towering forehead seems to be full of wisdom. Hopkins. When he was young, Hopkins wore a scholar's robe and seemed to be engaged in a heated debate. Teacher, I disagree with your point of view. The ancients are great and powerful, but we humans are ordinary, but we have wisdom. We can use our wisdom to climb the road to godhood. As soon as the picture changed, Hopkins had become middle-aged. His hair is slightly gray, but his expression is full of fanaticism. Hopskin, in human body, I have obtained the power comparable to the ancients. I am a god climber. Although I am above the ancients, there is still even greater existences, but I can definitely stand side by side with them. Finally, there is old age. With disheveled hair and ragged clothes, Hopkins looked like a crazy beggar. He's crazy. No. I thought I would use wisdom to climb to become a god, but the facts tell me, I was fooled by the ruler from the very beginning. What I want to prove is what he asked me to prove. What I studied, it's all existing chaotic technology. My eager desire to become a god has actually led to the accelerated arrival of the end. Haha, then what is the point of my existence, my efforts? Haha, haha. The truth is too cruel, and it has exceeded Hopkins' ability to bear it. The 3 scenes of phantoms flew by quickly, and immediately there were some indescribable knowledge. Fang Xian didn't look at it much. Because at this time, Clark Carter had already roared and raised the silver gun. He waved his hand, and his figure disappeared before the bullet arrived. When he reappeared, Fang Xian had already returned to his dormitory. He lay on the bed, his personality shook, and he began to disengage. After all, this is the dreamland of an ancient ruler. If it wasn't for the alchemist's 6th-level personality, it might not even be possible to move, let alone explore. Those investigators have almost no way to deal with the dream of this great existence. They even need to use many auxiliary means every time they enter the dream, and they are much slower than him before giving him the chance to read the book. Real world. Fang Xian opened his eyes. Most of the secret castle didn't collapse like in the dream, but the sound of the waves outside the island seemed to be a little louder. It's just that a little bit of Nicola's power seeps out of the seal, and the keeper of secrets should be able to solve it, so that it won't affect reality. He closed his eyes and began to pretend to sleep. At the same time, he began to hypnotize himself again, forgetting the name of Nicholas. This is a simple hypnosis technique. Actively hypnotize yourself, and replace the word and pronunciation of Nicola with another name, such as the great existence under the deep sea. Another symbol is set, which is also the key to open the memory, such as a snap of fingers or clenched teeth. In this way, the hypnotized person clearly knows that he has forgotten the name, and knows what it represents and what danger it hides. When you want to use it, you can directly use the key and make a symbolic action to open the treasure. Wake up tomorrow morning, the secret castle will probably be turned upside down, but I'd better digest tonight's harvest, maybe this is the only chance. Fang Xian began to recall the knowledge he had obtained through psychic communication. The 3 banned books were first skipped by him, and what he really cared about were the works of the god climber Hopkins. This work does not have a name, but Fang Xian gave it one, which is called the Book of Hopkins. Actually, it would be more appropriate to call it the Book of Madness, or Hopkins' Confessions. Thinking of Hopkins' ominous old age, Fang Xian thought a little funny. Part of the knowledge in the book was memorized by his psychic. If it is a normal book, the first thing that catches the eye is probably the incantations invented or improved by Hopkins. They come from different sects, learn different supernatural creatures, and feel somewhat unexpectedly similar to Fang Xian's current path. As for the effects of the incantations, there are also various effects, most of which are to contact or summon various family members. In fact, if it is only here, there is not much difference between Hopkins' book and Black Emperor 9 Profound Canon. But in the middle part of the classics, there are some different contents. Hopkins, a crazy man, controlled different families with spells, began to study, enslave, and dissect them, and carried out various evil transplant experiments, involving the level of human body modification, which was very bloody and crazy. They are stronger than us, but we can take their power. This requires a certain amount of flesh and blood technology, and a certain amount of spiritual stamping, but humans can do it. Hopkins expressed his idea in one sentence. Probably, he used this technology to become an existence comparable to the ancients. However, after his later years, he was already a little crazy, and he set his sights on the great existence above the ancients. Even through a lot of research and experiments, a taboo ceremony was designed. Human beings cannot directly become gods, but they can seize gods. Even the ancient rulers, I will seize their authority. Hopkins wrote this at the end of the book. And obviously, he failed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 428. Smith finished his school day, returned home, and began his routine of prayers and callings. The last time he was suddenly summoned to an unnamed desert island and fought against the scaled people, let him understand that he was still too weak. So, he increased his daily exercise time. After persevering, Smith found that his body was much stronger, with more subtle muscular contours, and even the girls in school had a much higher rate of turning heads. Physical exercise is only one aspect, and he is even more delighted that after the last time, he has a deeper grasp of the mantra. At this time, even being able to detect his mental power, he must be much stronger than ordinary people. He has tried, and with just his eyes, he can scare away several vicious dogs. But the name that he cared about, Nikolaya, did not bring any trouble to his life. Maybe it was the blessing of the lost god, or maybe he was too weak. Unless in a special environment like a deserted island, calling the name of the god would not bring any response. The key to Fang Xian's summoning success is his personality. Moreover, it is still located in Nicola's own dreamland. Of course, even so, Smith did not dare to chant that terrible name. He finished his dinner, went back to his room, and began to think. On a piece of paper, write down your goals for this period of time. Exercise routine, done. Daily prayer, done. Contact the supernatural. I need to get in touch with that circle and understand some basic knowledge, otherwise it is easy to make mistakes on that island. Smith muttered to himself, maybe there are special management agencies in the police station, but I can't bet my own safety on them. In terms of tolerance, gangsters may be able to get in touch with this dark side, but it is too dangerous. My best choice is actually my comrades in arms last time, such as Vivian, and that man. Unfortunately, the situation was urgent, leaving no contact information. Out of the same belief, he temporarily felt that those people could be trusted. At this time. But I deeply felt the inconvenience of contacting God of the lost. Even in your deep sleep, you can still respond to the prayers of humble believers. Please let us have our own communication channels. Vivian's arms were bandaged, and she looked out the window with a sad face. That dream was very strange. The injuries suffered inside were brought to the outside world. At that time, in order to cast the bird with broken wings spell, she stabbed herself in the arm, and had to make up a lie that the mirror was broken, and she managed to get away with it. However, he was also sent to the hospital for treatment by his terrified parents, and his range of activities was greatly restricted. Supernatural power is indeed intoxicating, but you have to pay a price. The girl's elegant eyes suddenly became a little confused. In a dense forest, Mitch, a tall, lanky, grim-looking man in hunter's attire, slogs his way through the rotting mire. In fact, he is indeed a hunter, a mercenary from the dark world, who is responsible for solving some people or things that cannot be made public for his employer. Due to professional relations, this industry still occasionally comes into contact with some supernatural cases, so he may have the deepest understanding of occultism among a group of believers, but he only knows it. The door of inhumanity is not so easy to open. Therefore, after getting a few words from the lost god, he will be ecstatic and devote himself to it. I have mastered the immortal poem, and the next thing is the bird with broken wings. Mitch muttered, and suddenly narrowed his eyes. Pain, why sacrifice my own pain, can't others' pain work? This requires a test object. He sensed the approach of many green and blue eyes in the dense forest. They were wolves. It's you. Mickey smiled cruelly, reciting the immortal psalm. In the low and hoarse mantra, the inexplicable mental pressure was released. One after another the wild wolves fell, changing from hunters to prey. What happened next was also the law of the jungle in nature, but the position was reversed. I will definitely take revenge. Great God of Lost, please bless me, as long as I succeed in revenge, my soul and my life are all yours. After a long time, Mickey wiped off the blood on his hands and walked out of the dense forest. The unnamed island. Fang Xian, who had noticed several waves of censorship, returned to the dormitory with a blank expression. In his ears, the prayers of a large number of believers have been lingering. The kind with pictures can understand the prayers of any believer. This is an incidental to the 6th level alchemist, but I can only use it so far. As for the active response, or even godsend, I'm a fake, I have no power at all. Fang Xian shook his head and ignored it. Believers need to be guided, and the lost god needs to be forced. It seems that Droka will end up and become the favored one and the Pope. Don't, I'm a little tired of this one. The secret castle has been loose on the outside and tight on the inside recently. It is said that several legendary investigators have returned. It is also impossible for Fang Xian to directly deduce any evil witchcraft in the room. All he can do is silently sort out the various knowledge he has obtained in his mind. Among them, Hopkins' achievements in the last stage of his life are the most precious. That is the taboo knowledge named by Fang Xian as the Hopskinden magic. In addition, the other 3 scriptures also gave Fang Xian a lot of inspiration. For example, the imprinting technology in the old seal of blood can be combined with the spiritual stamp invented by Hopkins to become the guardian of ordinary people. Sanity's best bastion. In addition, the knowledge of the throne of the wild hunt allows Fang Xian to better use the wind chaser mark, summon invisible monsters, and even order them to do some complicated things. As for the Black Emperor 9 profound canon, needless to say, the Hymn of Worms will definitely be greatly enriched, and the chapters contained in it are far more than that. At least in terms of occult medicine, Fang Xian felt that as long as he studied for a while, he could definitely surpass most investigators. In his opinion, the secret that the Keeper's headquarters had painstakingly tried to protect was nothing at all. At this time, there was a knock on the door. Fang Xian got up, opened the door, and saw Eric. Roka, I have something to tell you. Eric was embarrassed and authentic, his eyes dodged a little. It's something I'm guilty of doing, but it's not about me, I want to confide. Fang Xian smiled slightly in his heart, accurately grasped the guy's psychology, and made a way out. Come in and say. The new instructor found me and said that I have psychological talent and the potential to become a blood healer. She hopes that I will stay at the headquarters to study, after the training. Eric struggled and said, is this not a betrayal of the branch? The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 429. Is it finally here? Fang Xian was not surprised by this. Their group of new investigators is indeed the best new blood in each branch. It is quite normal for the headquarters to have the intention of soliciting and transferring from a branch to the headquarters, no matter how it is considered a promotion, can have better development. Probably all investigators will not refuse. Eric still feels a little guilty for this, and he feels sorry for the branch, which is already a bit of a conscience. Actually, don't feel guilty. We are secret keepers. Our duty is to protect secrets and protect the world. In the headquarters, your abilities will be better utilized, which will be more beneficial to the world. I believe, even if you share, the minister of the ministry will not care about these. Fang Xian said in relief. I always feel, your words are exactly the same as the instructor who persuaded me. Eric complained. Fang Xian was speechless for a moment. You forgot, you are a psychiatrist yourself, you can heal yourself well, you just need some comfort now, your heart has already made a choice. Yes, I have already made a choice, but I still have to rely on others to persuade me and find excuses for me. Oh, what a despicable soul lives in our bodies. Eric smiled wryly. Do you feel better after admitting your meanness? Much better. Then let's have a chat. Do you want to change your job to become a blood healer? Fang Xian handed over a cup of hot cocoa. Yes. Eric held the rim of the glass with both hands. The instructor said that I have this talent, my wrist is very dexterous, and I almost became a bartender. Sorry, I can't reveal more about the rest. I understand that the headquarters doesn't want the secrets to be leaked. This is true for secret medicines, and the same is true for blood therapy. Fang Xian shrugged. In fact, Eric has leaked some news. How does a bartender do it? Mix, stir, swirl. The so-called blood therapy. It is to prepare some special blood. If there is a centrifuge, maybe the efficiency will be better? Fang Xian rubbed his chin. Besides, probably the higher the rank of the dependent, the better the blood effect. I don't know if the keeper headquarters has collected the information of the great being sleeping under the deep sea. Blood, even if it is diluted, it must be the highest grade special product. Probably only legendary investigators can enjoy it. Of course, it's useless to guess the approximate method, and precious raw materials and formulas are needed. Wait, why do I think of some research by Hopkins? Maybe he was also an investigator, or even a legend among investigators. Or taboo. Fang Xian felt that although he didn't mean it, he seemed to have snooped on almost all the secrets kept by the secret keeper's headquarters. It has to be said that this is a kind of irony. Or say, Keeper Division. Love has been doing nothing lately. Probably due to the successive cracking of major cases, the outbreak rate of supernatural cases in the city has dropped sharply. Even if there is an occasional outburst, it's just some stupid scholar ignorantly deciphering the Elder Scrolls of hidden power or something. As long as it is not premeditated, organized, and committing crimes in groups, for love, it is an easy solution. Not to mention, after the attack on the branch, the investigators here were like crazy, looking for suspicious people all over the street, and several well-hidden extraordinary have been exposed for various reasons. In addition, investigators from all over the country also came to support, making the law and order in Orsay City unprecedentedly good. Hey, I feel that since Roka went to study, I have become a lot more relaxed. I don't know how the kid is doing at the headquarters, and I don't know how to call back. Love complained and opened the file in his hand. Inside is his latest supernatural case, a surgeon suspected of being a ghoul. This doctor is very cunning. There have not been any cases of missing persons or body theft around his clinic for more than 10 years, but he is better at amputation therapy and often recommends this treatment plan for less serious patients. This is not a big or small flaw, but it can only be considered average. Maybe this doctor is very greedy for money, or maybe he is only good at amputation surgery. If there is a huge difference in the purchase volume, he may be fooled by him. A ghoul who usually relies on drinking blood to sustain himself, and occasionally uses amputation to beat teeth as a sacrifice, it's really too rational. Love became interested. Could it be a ghoul with half vampire blood? It's worth investigating. As a veteran investigator, his strength is actually very strong, and it is not a big deal to single-handedly solve an alien. Because the target is clear and the intelligence is in place, even ordinary investigators can easily complete the task as long as they prepare special weapons for dealing with ghouls. Not to mention, just in case, say, it was a vampire disguised as a ghoul, he also brought a blessed silver weapon. DeVille Clinic. The old car was parked on the side of the road. Love pressed the weapon hidden in his waist and pushed open the door of the clinic. Doctor. Nurse. Inside the clinic, everything was quiet. Quietly too much. Strange, isn't it business hours now? Love showed doubts on his face, and walked a few steps inside. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he smelled blood. It came from behind a door that was ajar, and it was beginning to fade. Love pulled out the revolver and gently pushed open the door. A pool of dark red blood emerged, in which lay the body of a nurse in white, missing many parts of the body. Her head is still intact, her eyes are wide open, and it seems that she still has the fear before dying. Impossible. Miller is a very cautious person. He can endure for decades, so it is impossible for him to attack those around him. Cold sweat broke out on Luo Fu's forehead. The newly discovered accident seemed to overthrow all the clues in the file, and also put him in a dangerous situation. He checked the murder scene, took out a drop bottle, and put 2 drops of liquid into his eyes. When you close your eyes and open them again, the world seems to have changed. The chair and hospital bed made of steel seemed to be full of sharp breath, the light became dim, and various colors flashed inexplicably. On the ground, the original pool of blood was stained with a layer of fluorescence. At the same time, large footprints emerged one after another. Love followed the fluorescent blue-purple footprints, chased them out of the clinic, and came to a forest. Within the woods, there is a cave, and the footprints extend all the way in. Love frowned, first sent a signal for help, and then walked into the cave. Not long after, he saw a curled-up black figure, and that black figure also saw him, raised his head, revealing a pair of bloodshot eyes, and a mouth that was split to the base of his ears. Help, help me. It's still. Love suddenly felt the cold freeze his spine. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 430. What's still there? Love pointed a pistol at Dr. Miller's head and asked loudly. The doctor's mouth was split open, and it was full of sharp fangs. It was undoubtedly the dominant expression of a ghoul, and even a little out of control. For a sane ghoul, this is an unlikely scenario. Unless, his spirit was shocked and affected by some horror. That is something more terrifying than a ghoul. Dr. Miller had fallen into a state of delirium and madness, and was very frightened. He curled up into the posture of a baby, and spoke intermittently like a drunk. From his chaotic description, Love managed to sort out what happened. This ogre doctor is indeed a very cautious person, and even the closest people have not discovered his identity. Until the most recent day, he got a few broken pages, which are said to be from the voodoo rituals of the old colonial people. The text on them is very fascinating. Especially in one of the sentences, "The life of all things lies in blood," Blood is the source of life, blood is the fountain of redemption, blood is a beauty that pleases great beings. Repeated over and over by D.R. Miller. Originally, he mainly relied on drinking blood to survive. After coming into contact with those broken pages, although he carefully did not study or record anything, the influence still produced unknowingly. Madness and mutation are accumulating little by little, and the desire to overeat can no longer be suppressed. Finally, the day before, he had attacked his nerves, trembling, letting animality overwhelm humanity. After opening the floodgates of sanity, something even more terrifying happened. That hunt seemed to satisfy some ritual, and an invisible existence was summoned. It is wrapped around Miller, invisible and qualityless, no one can see it, but it has been tempting Miller to fall with ravings wrapped in honey and poisonous snake juice. Just being entangled overnight, he has already fallen into a state of madness. If love is a little later. Or maybe a totally insane ghoul. Damn it, does it involve another supernatural creature? Or the kind that the intelligence doesn't know at all? Love felt his hair stand on end, and in the thick darkness around him, it seemed that there was an indescribable danger hidden. Hiss. Hiss. There seemed to be the hissing sound of snakes coming from his ears, and he was being licked by snake letters one by one. Use blood and flesh to please the great existence, he promises you glory. An illusory and blurred voice, who did not know what language to use but could clearly understand the meaning, appeared in Love's mind. But his heart settled down. This summoning ceremony has not been completely successful, and the summoned family member has not yet fully descended. It is illusory, it needs a body, and it needs to follow the rules, so it is tempting me. Love has extraordinary experience handling paranormal cases. When he felt shaken in his heart, he took out a small pill from his belt without hesitation and stuffed it into his mouth. Pain. When the bitter taste spread, unspeakable pain immediately swept through his whole body. But it was in this pain that Love suddenly woke up from the nightmare and regained control of his body. At this time, he saw that Miller on the opposite side was completely crazy, his fingers turned into sharp claws, completely transformed into a ghoul, and rushed over. Boom! The ear-piercing gunshot suddenly sounded in the cave. Well, according to the knowledge I have gained during this period, it should be completely feasible to train the hounds of the wind to turn them into postmen to deliver some messages or packages. Fang Xian and Eric walked side by side, smiling at Yan Yan on the surface, but actually thinking about ways to control the family. This is something Hopkins has done long ago, and he can do the same. At this time, an investigator walked towards him. It's Clark Carter. Eric and Fang Xian hurriedly stepped aside and bowed to salute. Clark Carter nodded in greeting, there seemed to be a haze between his brows, and he walked over. Many investigators have come back recently, Eric said with emotion, I never thought we would meet Mr. Carter often. He is a living legend. He once solved the Dream Giant case. Yes. Fang Xian echoed a few words, feeling a little uncomfortable. After getting what he wants, the unnamed island has nothing to miss, and instead has the risk of being exposed. However, forcibly leaving without a reason is asking for trouble. I need to go outside, to experiment with some new spells, to compose some new poems. But, for what reason? Fang Xian pressed his temples, thinking with some distress. At this time, a newcomer student came over. Roka, there is your letter in the mail room. He looked dignified and comforted, don't worry. Okay. Fang Xian's inspiration was touched, and he vaguely sensed the arrival of an opportunity. He thanked the other party, came to the mail room, and picked up the letter. Because the unnamed island is blocked by mysterious forces, it is impossible to connect a telephone line or send and receive telegrams here. Some original letters are the only channel for news. He skillfully opened the envelope, took out a piece of letter paper, and looked at it at a glance. Love is missing? Fang Xian was a little surprised. But it's normal to think about it. Investigators have encountered countless dangerous situations, and missing is already considered a good thing. After all, there is no immediate death. Of course, most of the missing investigators did not end well, and only a small number returned safely, solved their troubles, and became legends. No, love, my teacher, my partner. Fang Xian's heart was calm, but there was a strong sadness on his face. Hey, look at it, young man, this is the normal state of our investigators. The old man who was reading the newspaper sighed, as if he had seen the scene a lot. No, I'm sure my teacher is fine, I'm going to save him, I'm going to apply to leave the island. Fang Xian spoke firmly. You. The old white man put down the newspaper and was really touched. The opportunity to study at the headquarters is something that other investigators dream of, but this young man gave up for his partner? It is indeed worthy of the evaluation of good partner. You have to think clearly, the old man couldn't help persuading him. I thought it through very clearly. Love is not only my partner, but also my teacher and my benefactor. I must go back immediately and rescue him. Fang Xian was very firm. Joke. It is rare to have such a beautiful excuse, and it would be a waste not to use it. Among this group of students, there were a few who dropped out of the training halfway due to various reasons, and he was among them, so he wasn't too conspicuous. As for love, he really intends to rescue him, if the other party is still alive. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 431. On the ferry. Fang Xian stood on the deck and waved at Ma Nk Hong Kong. Although he has a convenient means of transmission like the key to the door, the investigators don't know it. In order to keep the secret and hide myself, I had to take public transportation all the way back, using the ticket stubs at each stop to form a false route. He returned to his cabin, hung up the Do Not Disturb sign, activated the secret key immediately, and came outside a school. Through the fence, Smith can be seen sitting alone on the edge of the playground, staring indifferently at the crowd who are playing football. Withdrawn, paranoid. This is the main impression he left on his classmates recently. In school, such a character is prone to isolation and group cold violence. But Smith didn't care one bit. As for bullying on the bright side, after he beat up several well-known gangsters in the school, no one dared to do that anymore, and even wanted him to be the boss. Smith, of course, had no interest in that. It's really boring. He looked at the sweating athletes on the playground and the enthusiastic cheerleaders on both sides, and yawned. The doomsday is still a few years away, there is still a great truth in the universe, these ordinary people can only be like flies, ignorant, enjoy themselves, disasters come suddenly, and they die for no reason. Smith murmured inwardly. After practicing spells, he inevitably turned a little darker. It's just such a symptom, it's not bad. At this moment, Smith's spirit seemed to touch a terrible vortex. He stood up, with cold sweat streaming down his forehead, the world around him slowly began to rotate, and those faces, scenery, and laughter were all terribly distorted. Who is it? Smith's heart lifted. The spell is ready to be used at any time. Pursuing the terrifying spiritual vortex, he came to the edge of the railing and saw a figure. That figure was clearly standing there, but it was uncertain. He seemed to be wearing a white shirt, but also seemed to be a dark cloak. Under the cloak, there were countless snakes and rats wriggling. As for the face, it was even more vague, or in other words, I couldn't remember it when I saw it. Young believer, our common faith led me to you. Smith heard a voice. He quickly glanced around and found that no one was paying attention here, so he couldn't help asking, are you also a believer of the lost God? Fang Xian didn't speak, but just recited the beginning of the immortal poem. This feeling of spiritual shock is enough to distinguish him from other believers. "Why, I haven't seen you on the island." Smith asked out the doubts in his heart. Immediately, he heard a sneer from the person on the opposite side, "You are too weak. When you are fighting, there are more believers. In other battlefields, the battle between gods and gods surpasses yours." Imagination. Smith froze for a moment. He thought of the huge black bird and black tai sui that appeared last. Looking at it now, maybe it is a spell cast by a true powerful believer? "So, why did you come to me?" Smith asked next. "My lord said, you are all ignorant lambs and need the guidance of a shepherd," Fang Xian replied very cleverly. "Did the Lord send you here after hearing my prayer?" Smith was agitated, and even had some tears in his eyes. "My faith, my prayer, have finally been answered. You new believers have no experience in secret associations, and are easily spotted by investigators, so you can't gather, and you can't use public facilities to communicate frequently. Fang Xiandao, I will teach you how to summon messengers. They are invisible hounds, they have the ability to travel through space, and they can also be used by us, as long as a little spells and skills." "Thank you, sir," Smith said hastily. Immediately, he heard the stranger on the opposite side chanting a spell. In the surrounding space, there seems to be an extra creature, which may be the messenger. The next moment, Smith felt a pain in his finger, as if a little blood had been drawn. Blood is a beacon and a sign, and it is your messenger. Fang Xian's figure kept retreating into a shadow. "For some other knowledge, we can communicate through messengers." The warm sun shines down. Everything around has returned to its original state. If it wasn't for the tingling of his fingers, and the appearance of an invisible hound that only he could see, Smith almost thought he was hallucinating. Inside the cabin, Fang Xian's figure reappeared. He not only visited Smith, but also Vivian, Mickey, and a few believers who he thought had potential. All of them visited, and left their contact information and messengers. In the future, you can teach them some supernatural knowledge through messengers and other means, and even send items. Speaking of, this shouldn't be called a courier, it's more appropriate to call it a courier. Fang Xian touched his chin, sat down on the chair, and began to write. While pursuing supernatural power, one thing that needs to be vigilant is to maintain humility. Compared with the universe, human beings are inherently small like dust. Reason and thinking are very important. Here I share a symbol called spiritual seal, which can effectively maintain our sanity and protect our spirit in the face of family pollution. We are fortunate to listen to the teachings of great beings. We must keep in mind the dogma: do not learn from other sects, perform bloody sacrificial ceremonies, do not call the names of other great beings, and do not use the power of spells at will. Finally, this knowledge, I hope you can share with each other. After writing a thick stack of letter paper, Fang Xian stuffed them into the envelope and sealed the envelope. Having done all this, he began to chant the mantra. From the void, a hunting dog that chased the wind suddenly jumped out. Different from its companions, these hounds as couriers have all been controlled by Fang Xian with Hopkins' spell. Unless their master wakes up, even members of the wind-chasing sect cannot summon them. The great being on the throne of the wild hunt wouldn't pay attention to such a trivial matter. Besides, it's not yet time for the stars to return, maybe they're still asleep. As for those sects, am I still afraid of them? Fang Xian stuffed the letter into the hound's mouth with peace of mind. If there are outsiders, you will see a thick letter disappearing into the air, as if it was swallowed by an invisible monster. Send it to Smith. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 432. Orsay. Fang Xian, wearing a mask, appeared outside Dr. Miller's clinic. Looking at the cordon that has been pulled up and the police officers patrolling the periphery, he can't help but shake his head. Sure enough, it's late. According to the distance, he should still be on the ferry now, and he was teleported here secretly. After all, if you really come here by transportation slowly, you can almost wait to collect Love's body and attend the memorial service by the way. Even now, it was a lot too late. After all, there was a process of delivering letters in the past. I hope Love is still alive. Fang Xian clearly remembered that before his memory recovered, he was tricked by Shayla into Stuart's lakeside villa, and when he was attacked, Love shot and killed the heretic. The letter said very briefly, it is roughly that he disappeared during the investigation. Fang Xian looked at the sky. Night fell quickly. A person constantly in the cabin arouses suspicion, but at night there is not much of a problem. The night gave Fang Xian the best cover. He didn't go directly to search the clinic, because there must be investigators hiding around to watch secretly. Fang Xian has a better method, directly summoning the invisible messenger. The Windhound is not only an excellent messenger and courier, but also an excellent scout and thief. It has discovered hidden investigators and is just around the corner. This kind of family of the ancient ruler was originally chaotic and bloodthirsty. It couldn't wait to rush to that person's hidden position, bite off the other's neck, and drink the other's fountain of life. Fortunately, Fang Xian held the dog's leash and firmly restrained its impulse. Go to the clinic and bring me an item from the murder scene. Fang Xian passed the order. A flash in the void. The hound disappeared, and only a dozen seconds later, a blood-stained scalpel fell from mid-air, and Fang Xian held it firmly in his hand. Good dog. He chuckled, gripped the scalpel tightly, and started channeling. Investigators with high enough inspiration can feel some information through various items that have been contaminated with supernatural power. But Fang Xian believes that no investigator can see as clearly as himself. His thinking became chaotic, and his soul seemed to have escaped from his body. The surrounding night is even more aggressive, bringing a dangerous atmosphere. In such an atmosphere, Fang Xian entered the pool like a drop of ink. The pitch-black lines quickly outlined a scene. It was a doctor man in a white coat. His mouth was split open, reaching directly to the base of his ears. His pupils were bloodshot. He was lying on the ground, shaking his head in a pool of blood. Suddenly, he raised his head, showing his blood-stained chin, and the expression on his face became extremely frightened. Don't come here. Did you notice me? This is impossible. Fang Xian continued to observe. He saw a translucent jellyfish in the void, with octopus-like tentacles, emitting a dazzling and mysterious purple brilliance, like a brilliant star. Family of the starry sky. Just seeing the other party for the first time, Fang Xian's name inexplicably appeared in Fang Xian's heart. Hiss. The next moment, the tentacles of the starry sky family danced like a python, and there was a hissing sound. The psychic scene shattered instantly. Fang Xian came back to his senses and recited the mantra. A layer of black mist emerged, covering him, turning him into a decent black robe. The bird with broken wings is my name, eat your pain to feed my heart. Amid the sound of the incantation, a big black bird emerged, with broken wings and dirty scales, but its wings were 6 or 7 meters long, making Fang Xian easily stand on its back. The bird with broken wings was soaring in mid-air. It didn't take long for Fang Xian to see the dense forest and the cave. The other party has stayed here, but not for a long time. Pursuing the sense of inspiration that seems to be absent, Fang Xian slapped the bird with broken wings. It vibrates its wings, hides in the clouds, and moves quickly. The speed of the bird with broken wings was astonishing. In less than half an hour, Fang Xian arrived at the place where the inspiration was traced. This is the city of Marcello. Fang Xian looked at the landmark, thought for a while and recalled, it's a long way from Orsay. The investigators over there must have a plane besides a psychic master if they want to find this place. He withdrew the spell, looked at the street signs, and walked into a small town on the outskirts of the city. Clarion Town. That's the name of the place. It was still night, not even midnight. The only bar in the town was still open, and there were noises from drunkards. Something feels wrong. Fang Xian looked at the night sky here. If he was an ordinary person or an investigator, he probably wouldn't feel anything. But in his eyes, the night sky here, and the light of those stars, all have a strange purple tinge. He thought for a while and walked towards the town. Go away, you dirty beggar. At the entrance of the bar, a guy who looked like a homeless man was thrown out. A bearded fat man with a tattoo on his arm spat on him, "You're not welcome here, homeless." Fang Xian looked at the homeless man. He was about 40 years old, with stubble all over his face, tattered clothes, a bad smell on his body, and confusion in his eyes. "This gentleman, are you all right?" Fang Xian opened his mouth and asked a question. "I do not know." The homeless man was full of confusion, but Fang Xian could tell that although his body was sloppy, the skin under the dirt was well maintained, and there were no calluses on his hands. He didn't look like a homeless man, but rather an entrepreneur who had just gone bankrupt. In the small town, there are still such bankrupts. Why do you feel a little uncoordinated? Fang Xian originally wanted to leave, but was suddenly inspired, and asked again, "What's your name? Where is your home?" At this time, the homeless man stood up slowly, his eyes rolled, a trace of pain appeared on his face, and he said blankly, "I forgot." If someone else said that, Fang Xian would have punched him with a punch. He even forgot what his name was. Could it be that he was hit by a car and lost his memory? But now, he chooses to believe. He really felt the pain in the homeless man's heart. "It's okay, I'll treat you to a good meal." He smiled and led the bum into the bar. "This guest, do you want to take him into our shop?" The big man who blocked the way just now appeared again. "Yes, I pay for him. Do you know any news about him?" Being able to touch one's own inspiration is roughly a clue. The fat and strong man like a bodyguard was startled when he heard the words, and rubbed his head. "I don't know, he suddenly appeared in the small town a week ago. No one knew him, but he just insisted on refusing to leave, as if he was lost. At first we helped him, but sir, everyone's kindness is limited." "I see." Fang Xian smiled and handed over a few bank notes. "Give me 2 glasses of beer, and one of the best food in your bar."